Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From Arcadian Court in downtown Toronto, welcome to the Empire Club of Canada. For those of you just joining us through either our webcast or podcast, welcome to the meeting. Today's topic is no surprises, no secrets, a government's role in supporting a stable, prosperous, modern economy. Of course, we all woke up this week to a big surprise, the announcement of General Motors to close down the Oshawa plant at the end of 2019. Obviously, manufacturing has a key role in a stable, prosperous economy, and so we are awaiting your thoughts on that. This is the third time today's speaker has been a keynote at the Empire Club of Canada. However, it's the inaugural speech in her new role as Leader of Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition. Thank you. So one of the challenges of introducing Andrea Horwath is Ontarians believe that they know her very well, and that was evident with the polling around the last election. I tried to find something that both the Ontarians and the Empire Club members might find unique about Andrea Horwath, and I found this online questionnaire from postcity.com that she was a part of, and she was asked questions like, what was your favorite TV show? And she said Jeopardy, because she liked Alex Trebek. Is that still true? No, that's good. Okay, well, if I speak too long, you can start to play the Jeopardy music, and I'll just come off the stage. More interesting, she was questioned about her favorite historical figure, and Andrea responded, quote, I would say Agnes MacPhail. She was one of the first female MPPs, and she fought battles that nobody else would fight for people that nobody else really cared about. And I see her as someone I very much admire, unquote. For those of you who don't know, MacPhail was elected to the legislature in 1943. She was a trailblazer and had to endure many unpleasant things in those days, including heckling at events. There's a famous story of MacPhail being confronted by a male heckler who shouted, quote, don't you often wish you were a man? Unquote. And she answered back, shouting, yes, don't you? Like MacPhail, Andrea has a reputation as a fighter. She fought her way up in the male-dominated world of Hamilton city politics, first elected to council in 1997. She became an MPP in 2004 through a by-election, and shortly thereafter battled in a leadership campaign, becoming the NDP Leader in 2009. This catapulted her into the first general election as leader in 2011. And when some individuals counted her out after the 2014 election, Andrea was not deterred. She kept fighting, and it led to incredible success. During the 2018 election, Andrea ensured that the NDP had the highest percentage of women candidates in Ontario's history at 56%. This resulted in women being elected as MPPs in 20 of the 40 total NDP seats. Under her leadership, the NDP vote percentage rose to 33.59% of Ontarians. So that is also great. In terms of today's topics, yeah, you clap for all the other things. That's also good. You can clap for that one too. In terms of today's topic on the role of government, we do have some hints on Ms. Horwath's approach. In an interview she gave to Rabble.ca after becoming the NDP leader in 2009, she said, quote, government should not be hands-off. Government should absolutely be involved in the economy and the distribution of the wealth that the economy creates and the setting of priorities around things like education and healthcare, unquote. And we are all eager to hear what her take on that is today, particularly because there's a change of government at Queen's Park. In her first speech to the Empire Club in 2013, Ms. Horwath was quoted as saying, quote, I know that a race to the bottom on wages is not the path to prosperity, unquote. This is evident of her position that all Ontarians deserve to earn a living wage, and her belief that it is also good for the economy. Andrea has been an advocate for many other issues, including HST to be removed from hydro bills, forcing an end to proposed cost increase on seniors' prescription drugs, and the creation of a financial accountability office for the province. In 2012, Andrea's work on these issues had led her to an EVE award in recognition of her public service. Please give a warm welcome to the Leader of the NDP and Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, MPP Andrea Horwath. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks, everyone. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Bonjour tout le monde.
Bonjour.
I want to begin by acknowledging, of course, that we're meeting today on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. And as we meet here today, let us renew our commitment as Ontarians to true and meaningful reconciliation that's based on respect, cooperation, and action to make people's lives better and build stronger communities across our province. And I want to thank Kent for that kind introduction. If I just want to take a moment and say it's probably the most broad introduction and fulsome one. And as you kept picking these things out from my past, I kept getting more and more uptight about what might be coming next. But you did a fantastic job, Kent, and I appreciate that. Thank you. I also want to thank the Empire Club of Canada for having me once again, and of course the sponsors of the event, both the luncheon as well as the VIP event earlier before lunch, and for making this event possible, for making it an opportunity for all of us to get together to have a chat today. I really do appreciate it. It's been my pleasure as both the NDP leader and now as leader of the opposition to meet and work with many of you who are in the room today. And as I look out, I see business owners, I see not-for-profit leaders, I see labor leaders, I see investors, and all of you are vital parts and partners in building prosperity for our province. I know that everybody in this room shares a commitment to protecting what's already working in our province and to fix what isn't working. We also share an understanding of the serious challenges that Ontario faces, and let's not sugarcoat it, folks. We are certainly in some uncertain times these days. As I speak, there are close to 5,000 workers and their families in Oshawa worried about their futures, as Kent has already mentioned. After a century of assembling GM vehicles in Oshawa, those folks are worried that they are not going to be able to keep putting food on the table for their families. And my heart is with the city of Oshawa and the region of Durham, and I'm sure all of you in the room feel the same way. But I believe that the province of Ontario must do much more than simply extend sympathy. The province can fight like hell to protect those jobs. And I think we need to do that. Electric and autonomous vehicles will be at the heart of the auto industry moving forward. So let's not just sit back and let other jurisdictions lead. Let's not just wave goodbye to thousands of jobs. Let's do the hard work and put Oshawa and Ontario back on the leading edge. For a century, Oshawa has been a leader in the auto industry, and I think we can keep it that way. So let's work hard now with the workers, with the municipal leaders, with local businesses and the community to ensure the vehicles of tomorrow will be built right here in Ontario. I think it's pretty obvious that I don't share Doug Ford's attitude that it's all over. He's throwing in the towel, but there's a year before the announced closure actually takes place, and I say it's only over if we give up. But sadly, it's not just GM workers that are worried, and it's not just GM worried about uncertain times in our province. In the many years that I've been meeting folks from different industries and sectors across the province, one thing that everyone, regardless of their sector, has always expressed to me, has always emphasized, is the fundamental importance of predictability. Government plays a key role in providing a stable environment for business of all sizes in all sectors to thrive. Because an environment where businesses have to contend with shocks and surprises only makes it harder to build a prosperous and secure economy. Predictability, transparency, that's how we build stability for business, reliability for investors, and prosperity for everyone. You know, making sure that anything that's coming down the pike is based on data and evidence, making sure that there's a clear plan, making sure that the government shares that plan for all to see so that everyone, workers, businesses, and investors know what to expect in the next quarter, the next year, the next 5 years. No surprises, no secrets. Since the election, there's been just a little bit of change, I'd say. There has been a lot of change since the election, and I know that some of you here are probably very appreciative of some of those changes. That's no secret. And it's also not a secret to you that I opposed things like rolling back the minimum wage, and I opposed taking the 2 sick days away from those who counted on them. Because I really do believe deeply in respecting working people. And I feel strongly that everyone who works in Ontario should be able to build a good life here. Now, you might not agree with me on the minimum wage issue, but you may recall that I've been calling for an increase in the minimum wage for years now. We were calling for $10 back in 2010. We were calling for $12 back in 2012. Tim Hudak's getting a bit nervous over there. You remember those days. But I think what we can all agree on, though, in this room and throughout the province is that for far too often, decisions in Ontario these days feel like they're ill thought out, like they're being based on who has the Premier's ear at any given moment, instead of what's best for Ontario's people and Ontario's economy. Decisions like cancelling university campuses in Markham, Brampton, and Milton, for example. Decisions like that are not backed by data, that are not backed by evidence. It's short-term thinking. And when the plan is kept hidden from you, from me, and from potential investors, it makes it harder for everyone to do business. It means businesses, investors, and workers are never sure about what's going to happen next. But one thing is very clear. Ripping up contracts in the green energy sector and passing laws that prevent those very businesses from suing for breach of contract, scuttling vital independent watchdogs like the Child and Youth Advocate, the Environmental Commissioner, and the French Language Services Commissioner, watchdogs that people of Ontario depend on to hold government accountable. These are not things that inspire confidence. Now, hopefully, this will change, and as leader of the official opposition, I will be constructive. I'm going to support what's working in our province, but I will also be pressing our government every day to fix what isn't working. Because businesses, thank you. Because businesses should be able to trust that the contracts they sign are going to be upheld. They should be able to plan ahead with some certainty for the next year and into the future. And investors should be able to look at Ontario as a safe bet. Because these are exactly the kinds of things that make it possible for all of us to build a more prosperous Ontario together. Stability and predictability in government are also essential to growth because they allow us to look forward. They allow us to tackle the big things that we need to move our province forward, like infrastructure planning and investments, so that we can finally build more efficient, affordable transit, expand the benefits of broadband, that was a good slip, eh? expand the benefits of broadband internet to places like rural Ontario, to communities that don't have it now. And it's shocking how many communities don't have it now. Rural communities, farmers, businesses in school in small-town Ontario. And ensure that we have safe and accessible, well-maintained roads everywhere in our province. Roads that allow people to get back and forth to work, allow goods to get to market. We know we have to keep on building and improving our modern workforce as well, which is essential to a modern economy. And that means we have to invest in education at all levels. You know, from taking from taking meaningful action to fund and fix our kids' schools, to making sure that the cost of college or university stops being a drag on the upward mobility of young people who are entering our workforce. Young people who are hoping to buy their first homes, start their families, and build a great life for themselves. You know, instead of canceling the construction of those critical universities that I mentioned early on and smothering economic activity in fast-growing municipalities like Brampton, Markham, and Milton, Ontario should be seizing opportunities to become more competitive in the global economy by expanding our capacity for research, innovation, and excellence. And we also have to move forward and not backward in our vision to build an economy where everyone can get quality, steady work. You can get a quality, steady job, a job where everyone is paid fairly and can earn fair benefits so that they can build a good life for their families, contribute to our growing economy, and ensure that our province prospers. You know, moving forward on improving our modern workforce also means that government needs to ensure that all of us, as workers, businesses, investors, Ontarians, are supported by an accessible, high-quality healthcare system. And I believe that that means safeguarding the quality of our public healthcare system as it is today. But it also means coming to the table and contributing to things like dental benefits for Ontarians, because expanding quality health coverage will make Ontario an even more attractive place to invest and an even better place to run a business, and it will make people healthier. And I'm just going to go offline for a sec on the dental issue, because I talked to so many people. Now I'm going to use one of Doug's lines. I talked to thousands of people during the campaign, and I did. And you know, even business people were quite interested in the dental benefit program that we were putting forward, because 2/3 of companies already provide dental benefits for their workers. The plan that we had was one that would ask those 1/3 that are not doing that to help contribute. And of course, the in tandem piece, if you will, was our pharmacare program. And what that would have done is a couple of things. It would have taken about $800 million a year out of the costs of benefits for those employers that are providing benefit plans. So that would have been an assistance to employers in that regard. But what it also would have done was give us a significant bargaining power when you are representing 14 million rather, almost 14 million people and their needs for drugs and for pharmaceuticals. And so when you got that many people for whom you're bargaining with drug companies in terms of the cost of drugs, it's a big bargaining chip. And so we saw that, and again, not something that we cooked up in the back rooms, but we were consulting with people that particularly from the West Coast, who spend their life doing work on this particular issue to try to figure out how do we move our country forward when it comes to pharmacare. And those experts showed us very clearly, that we can not only save significant dollars in the cost of pharmaceuticals with the pharmacare program, but we could also then reduce the impact on our healthcare system in other ways, right? Fewer people ending up in emergency for conditions that they weren't able to manage with drugs. one in every 3 minutes in Ontario, there's somebody going to an emergency room or a doctor's office to get their pain in their mouth dealt with. So the dental plan would have helped reduce pressure on doctors as well as hospitals also. And so when we talk about things like pharmacare and dental care, it's not just the socialist dream, my friends. It actually makes economic sense, and it makes sense for government to be able to reduce costs. And it will help us protect our healthcare system for the next generations. But you know what? It also means that the things that government has to do are things that are sometimes not easy. It's hard work. We have to do the hard work of maintaining and improving and expanding services like transit as well. These services sustain our workforce, and they are the lifeblood of our communities, and making them more connected, more prosperous, and more desirable to live in. That's why investments in transit are important. And Ontario's ability to provide these services at a high level makes it the best choice for skilled workers as well. And you all know very well that we have a lot of great skilled workers in our province. We have a lot of really well-educated people in our province, but their choices are global in terms of where they use their talents, where they decide to settle in terms of their careers. And what we need to do is make sure we provide the infrastructure, if you will, to encourage them to stay here and to use all of that great talent to help move our province forward. So I'm looking forward to hearing your insights about how we can give people and businesses the stability that they need to succeed, because I believe that together we can make Ontario a better, more affordable place to live and to do business. And we can attract the world's best, not only keep our best here, but attract the best from the rest of the world. And we can create more opportunity for every Ontarian. The people of Ontario have more in common than what divides us. We share a vision of vibrant communities, no matter where those communities are. Vibrant communities in urban settings, vibrant communities in small town settings and rural settings, world-class healthcare, more opportunity and less debt for our young people, and prosperity for all. And I know that we can deliver on a shared vision to make Ontario the best place in the world to build a great business and a great life. So thank you all very much. Merci beaucoup. I look forward to hearing your questions. Miigwech.
So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take some questions from the floor. We have Bill and Marie with mics. I'm going to ask the first question while people are getting their thoughts together, but when it's time for you to do so, please introduce your name and the company or organization you represent. And if it drags on a little bit too long, then Andrea may sing the Jeopardy song, or I might start singing it, you never know. But so one of the questions I had was around General Motors, and you had talked about an auto strategy in the past. What is is that something you're still emphasizing? And if so, in this new context, what does that look like, and how might that be applied? Yeah.
Well, thanks, Kent, for the question. And yes, I mean, we've talked about an auto strategy for some time. So not just during the campaign, but as part of our platform, but for a number of years now. I mean, people may know this about me. I'm an auto worker's daughter. I mean, I grew up in Stony Creek, which is now part of Hamilton, thanks to Mike Harris. and my dad had a great job, right? There were 4 kids in the family, and we were able to afford the things that we needed. We had a nice lifestyle, and although we didn't have the kind of money that he could put all 4 kids through university, we still did very, very well. And my sister and brothers and I had a pretty good life. So when I say that, it's because I know how important those kinds of jobs are. And now I also know that there's many changes that are happening globally that we have to be cognizant of, but we also have to realize that these jobs and this investment in terms of the new kinds of cars or automobiles that are coming online in the future aren't going to come here by accident. Right? We're not going to get, the autonomous vehicle manufacturing or the electric automobile manufacturing opportunities here in Ontario as a fluke. So part of what we need to do is not only sit down with industry and the other orders of government and labor, frankly, but also, with universities and colleges and with the innovation sector. I mean, look, we have so much in terms of what we can offer. When you look particularly around the innovation corridor and the engineers that we have here and the people that are doing such great work when it comes to innovation, these are the pieces that we need to have at the table to develop a strategy to help us make sure that those investments are coming here and that those products are being manufactured in our communities. Because one of the other things that we have, which is kind of the very big disappointment I think about Oshawa, we have a really skilled workforce when it comes to automotive. And the disappointment in Oshawa was, of course, that plant particularly had done a whole reskilling of their workforce to deal with their dual plant, which can produce both cars and trucks. And those folks worked really hard to make sure that they were top-notch, and it's one of apparently the highest quality plants in the entire GM family. And so to lose a plant like that, it should never happen. But what we also have to make sure is that we get GM and the other big three, if you want to call them that, as well as Toyota and others. I have a brother that works at Toyota, by the way, so I had to put that plug for Toyota in there. But we can't just expect that we're going to continue to have those good auto jobs without a proactive strategy. And that proactive strategy has to have all the players at the table so that we can map out how it is that we're going to get these investments and these products here in our province.
Thank you. Michael Kobzar from Siemens Canada. You briefly made mention of the university cancellations that just took place, I think Brampton, I believe Milton, and where I live in Markham. And I'm not a student, so it doesn't affect me, but what effect will it have on communities and the economies of those communities? If you could elaborate on that, that would be great.
Sure. Thank you for that question. And I think we were all pretty shocked when we saw the middle of the night, kind of dead of the night announcement that these universities were being canceled. And of course, since then, the Ryerson Law School has been canceled, and as well as the Francophone University. But I talked in my speech about the fact that we have an economy that's changing, right? I mean, we have some of the most rapid and increasingly rapid change in technologies that we've seen in our history. And so, it's I think, backwards to imagine that we're going to be able to take advantage of being on the cutting edge of the changing technologies and economy if we get rid of our post-secondary institutions, or if we don't expand opportunity for young people to be able to engage at the post-secondary level. And so, just for an example, in Brampton, a young person who would have taken advantage of the Brampton campus would have saved about $800 or more per semester, as well as 800 hours of time in traveling back and forth to university, to downtown Toronto. That's pretty major. When you look at I think it was the Markham campus, that was literally about to turn sod. I mean, within 2 weeks from the announcement coming was the sod turning that was supposed to happen. The hours that went in to building the partnerships that led to the vision for that campus, you can't even count. how much effort was put in. And that campus was one that was bringing together business, bringing together, of course, the academic side with the college and university involved, bringing together community, and it saw itself as as a real hub for innovation and for scaling of companies. So taking not only the innovators, but translating that innovation into marketable products or ideas that then could be scaled. And so all of these partnerships were part of what this particular hub was all about. And now all of that activity is gone, and all of that excitement about the future is gone, and it really has a dampening effect on the community. Similarly, when you think about Milton, again, there was a real opportunity there for the connection into the innovation corridor, and they really saw this as their way of bringing innovation and opportunity. Because the other thing that we see, and I used to hear this in Brampton, and I'm sure I'm going to start hearing it again. The frustration when people have to send their children far away, or at least on a journey to get to university, and sometimes those kids don't come back, right? And sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes they stay in Toronto, for example, and don't come back to Brampton. And when you have an opportunity to make Brampton the center, where you can start building innovation in Brampton and start building job opportunities that come from that innovation and that investment in Brampton, then there's opportunity for those young people as well to stay in their own community and help that community thrive. And when you think particularly about these particular cancellations, I mean, these are fast-growing communities. I mean, Brampton, I think, is the second fastest growing community in the entire country. Why wouldn't we provide the kind of infrastructure, education-wise, that we need to make sure that the young people in Brampton, have opportunity for the future? And so again, I mean, this is for me why I really feel strongly that those decisions were made on a whim and for the wrong reasons. Because the folks here who are business people, this as well. I mean, you have to invest. You have to invest to continue to move your company forward. You bring new products to market. You have to invest in R&D. Things don't just keep rolling along without any thoughtful investment in the future. And that's what I think government needs to do as well, particularly when it comes to the changing economy that we have and the realities that we're facing in terms of global competitiveness.
Table.
Excuse me. MJ Perry, semi-retired, back at school, loving it. My question is an academic one also. I remember when so many of our schools were made public. That was when I did my first degree. And I think Bill Davis was very instrumental in ensuring that post-secondary education would be available to all people. I am seeing our public schools becoming less and less accessible to my colleagues. And I cry for some of them as I see them struggle and know that they are going to be burdened with debt well into their 40s. Because of the cost of going into schools these days. And the support is coming from the private sector, which is good for STEM courses. But if you're in the fine arts, the liberal arts, the humanities, social sciences, because we don't have, you can tell where I am, we don't have those immediate results. It's usually 25 to 500 years before you see results of our work, they aren't as attractive for return on investment. So I am really, really concerned about our post-secondary students and our institutions not being as public, and then also the fact that there aren't more opportunities for these students when they graduate because there aren't other areas.
Well, you've raised a really important question, and I just, I've been touring around for a couple of years now on university campuses, and there's a couple of very worrisome trends that I'm hearing when I engage young people in a discussion about where they're at, and they're reflecting exactly the kinds of things that you're saying. I've met young people who are telling me, you know, maybe they're 24 years old, 23. They have no interest whatsoever in even having a serious relationship with anyone, because they don't think that they're going to get anywhere near being in a position to start their adult life till well after the age of 30. They're putting off those kinds of life-building milestones that we all expect at certain points in time because the debt that they're carrying is significant, and it's holding them down. And I did speak about that in my remarks very briefly, but those remarks, they don't come from statistics. They come from really hearing what young people are saying and how worried they are about the future, and how worried they are about being able to have the kind of future that they had hoped for and that they wanted. And that burden of debt also creates a lot of stress and anxiety, and that concern about being able to actually work in the field that you were studying in is another big piece of the puzzle. And so one of the things that we had in our platform, and one of the things we believe in firmly, and it actually comes from work that has been done over the years by my MPP, possessive that I am, my MPP, from London West, Peggy Sattler, who did a whole bunch of work on work-integrated learning, about how do we take our post-secondary institutions and make sure that the young people are graduating with some experience under their belt, where they've actually been in the workplace, they've made some connections and some networks in the workplace. And work-integrated learning, I mean, I know the federal government's been talking about it as well recently, but it's something that we believe we need to build into our education system. So co-op opportunities as well as work-integrated learning. In fact, one of the universities that was canceled spoke particularly about ensuring that every single graduate would have a co-op placement, because the universities are realizing as well that this is something that young people need. And of course, the other benefit of that is when young people then graduate, the employer gets a new worker who's got some understanding of the workplace, right? Who's got some skills and how to translate their education into the workplace. And so it really is a win-win. So there's that piece. And I just want to say in terms of the affordability, one of the challenges that I've seen for our province is that we are seeing the opposite in Ontario of what we're as to what we're seeing around the country. In many other provinces, government has been stepping up their investments in post-secondary and relying less on private investment. In our province, we've gone the opposite direction. But in other provinces, government has recognized that we need to invest in post-secondary because that's what's going to be able to make us competitive in the future in the global economy as well. And so it's disappointing to see us go in the opposite direction because I think that puts even more stress on our young people and more, challenge when it comes to the growing fees and costs of tuition and other ancillary fees that go along with education at the post-secondary level. And one of the, I think, unintended consequences that we're seeing with all of these subtle changes, if you want to call them that, or changes that are just kind of piling up over time, is massive levels of anxiety with our young people. When I meet with kids on campus, oftentimes it's the Students Association that is responsible for the management of the drug plans that students have. I don't know if any of you may have kids that have gone to school, but they come back with forms, and if you can opt out of the insurance plan if your parents are already insured, but if not, that's what covers young people at university for prescription drugs. And I was shocked, and this started probably about 5 or 6 years ago already, to hear from the young people that are responsible for those drug plans through the students' associations, this spike in the amount of drugs that are being, the prescriptions that are being submitted for for coverage for anxiety medication, for depression and anxiety medication. So we do have to solve these problems. I believe part of that is government stepping up. I mean, now in Ontario, we don't even call it public education anymore at the post-secondary level. We don't call it publicly funded post-secondary education. We now call it what it is, which is publicly supported education, because it's no longer 50%. No longer do we cover 50% of the cost of public education at the post-secondary level from the province, which again is the opposite trend of what's happening around the country. And so these are some of the big, I talked earlier in the speech about some of the big things that we need to tackle. And yes, we need to tackle transit, absolutely. And yes, we need to tackle healthcare, and we need to tackle making sure that we have a workforce that's ready for the changes that are coming in the economy and in technology. But we also have to take care of, making sure that we have the educational opportunities there and that they're accessible for folks. And we have to also, of course, deal with the need to make sure that folks have an opportunity to work, because those young people are bouncing now, right? Between college and university. I don't know, I've been to the Y a couple times in Hamilton, and those mums that are my age kind of commiserate about the fact that they paid for 4 years of university. Their young person, their son or daughter couldn't get a job in their field, so they went to college to try to get some extra, skills, and then they're still working in the hospitality industry. Not that there's anything wrong with the hospitality industry, but that's certainly not why they went to college and then university. So that was a very long-winded response, but I'm glad you asked the question because it's extremely important and complex, so thank you.
So the last question will go to a former Queen's Park colleague and fellow Niagara boy, also Tim Hudak. Thanks.
Well, I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition. It's an outstanding speech, and enjoyed your presentation today. Can I ask a behind-the-scenes personal question? Would that be cool? I'm genuinely interested in this. You have been the second most successful NDP leader in the history of the province. You've won more seats than any other leader aside from the 1990 election. Congratulations on that. Thank you. So you've got Percy Hatfield, Mike Mantha here, but you got a whole bunch of new members. So you more than doubled your MPP. So as somebody who had the job, maybe you could share with the audience what that is like to have so many new MPPs, a lot of whom are joining us here today. And my other question is, this is the biggest change in new members, I think, in the history of the Ontario legislature. So is the place different now with a lot more MPPs, or is the game the same old game?
Well, I wouldn't say it's only the MPPs that are changing the game at Queen's Park. Can I ask the MPPs to rise and say hello? So there are a couple of, thank you, Tim, for the question. I appreciate it. So there are a couple of things. First and foremost, yes, there are many MPPs on both sides of the House who are, brand spanking new and who are there to do their best and represent their constituents and to learn. And so if there's one thing I think that's very, very different is that sitting in the legislature, oftentimes there might only be less than a handful of people, depending on what part of the day we're in, when we're debating bills, for example, that there's very few people that actually understand inside and out how the place works. And you get to know that over the years, which I keep telling my folks, don't worry, you'll get to know it over the years, but with only a handful of people that have been there in the past at any given time to kind of make sure that things are moving along and that we don't accidentally, make a decision that we all regret. That's one of the things. The other thing, though, and I think it's very positive, is that with our caucus, and it was mentioned, and I appreciate that we have 50% women in our caucus. And we do have a very strong opposition bench. And our caucus is not only very diverse and has a lot of young people, and one of the other benefits that we're finding, and that this is not new for us as New Democrats, but we have representation from all regions of the province sitting around our caucus table. So when that's important, it's really important. So when we're talking about issues that that are really important for urban Ontario, for example, but don't quite fit with rural Ontario or vice versa, it forces us to have the discussion about what is the best public policy for, going forward, and how do we prevent unintended consequences from those kinds of decisions. And so it's important to have that kind of diversity. But the other thing that having a stronger opposition bench in terms of the number of members that we have helps us to do is provide a better official opposition. And I'm not saying this in any way to say that the previous official opposition wasn't good, but what I can do as leader then is take some of the intense files, healthcare, for example, and instead of having a single critic for healthcare, knowing how complex and how many pieces are involved in the healthcare system, I can split that up into a couple of different critic areas. So I have France Gélina, who is our critic for health and always has been, and she's fantastic. Health and long-term care was her previous title, but now she's a healthcare critic, and I have a separate critic for long-term care and home care, because we all know that that area needs a lot of attention. And then I have a separate critic for mental health and addictions, because again, that needs to have some focus. So one of the things that the larger opposition helps me to do as a leader is not only give people things to do, but it helps us in our role as opposition, because what our job is to hold the government to account. And as I said in my speech, it's not only about criticizing, it's also about bringing forward ideas and plans for the future that we think make sense for Ontario. And so it's quite different having so many new faces around the table, not knowing, passing people in the hallway and not knowing if they're an MPP or not. That's happened to me a couple of times already. Eventually we'll get over that, but it is quite different. And of course, the style of the current Premier is another piece I think that we would all acknowledge is quite different than what we've seen in terms of the Premier's I don't want to say behavior, way of operating. Let's put it that way. But I have to say I'm excited. I'm excited about the change that we've seen in terms of new MPPs being elected in all kinds of different ridings. And I think it's obvious it was a change election, and of course we want to change for the better. Let's hope we get it. Thank you.
Does anyone else think it's fantastic that you guys are former rivals and get along so well? I think it's fantastic.
Stony Creek is Niagara Region too, maybe.
It is true. Stony Creek, yeah, that's exactly true. So to conclude the program, we're going to ask Ethel Taylor from CAA, the Vice President of CAA, to come up and give thank you remarks.
Just for the Vice President of CAA, I'm Vice Chair of CAA, so I just don't want anyone to get nervous at the table that I've taken somebody's job. Good afternoon. It's my honor and pleasure to thank Andrea Horwath, Leader of Ontario's official opposition, on behalf of everyone here today. Then I'll go off script. Elliot's going to stop breathing right now, but I do want to say I had such an enjoyable lunch with you, and it was such a pleasant opportunity for me, and I told you why. But CAA has a member value, is a member value organization, and we represent over 2.5 million people across our province. 1 in 4 households are members of CAA. We recognize the value and importance and have done a tremendous job working with your staff, with other people in the legislature. It is a big part of our role for governance and our government and community relations. And we appreciate the support of your caucus and of your team. You touched on a handful of issues today, and some really critical, all of them very critical to our members and to each of the people here, and we appreciate your view. We know that solutions come from working together, and that's why we are so happy that we could sponsor today's event, and know that we are supporters across the House of good government legislation that keeps our members safe. Your vision, I would say, is exactly what all of us want. We want a better Ontario. We want a better place for our children, and for us from CAA, we want a safer place for our members. I do want to congratulate you, and I would say not only the 50% women in your caucus, but on the diversity of your caucus and how it represents a province. So Andrea, thank you very much on behalf of everyone here, and personally, what a delight to meet you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So thanks everyone for coming today. We have a few more events until the end of the 2018. By the end of 2018, we would have 16 events. So it's been a great season so far. We have a number of things coming up in the new year. Next week we have the Federal Environment Minister talking about with Tom Clark, former CTV journalist, on our climate change issue. And presumably she will say different things than Rod Phillips said a few weeks ago, slightly different. So it's a huge topic of interest, and it's very important to Canadians. And so there's a few tickets left for anyone that's interested in coming, and that's a great event. The following week, our last event in 2018 is Ralph Goodale, and he will be speaking on very important topics as well. So thank you so much for coming, and the meeting is adjourned.